Hey everyone, welcome to the American Fertility Expo. Today is May 22nd, 2021, and I am one of your presenters, Michelle Johnson, and I will be speaking about the empowerment of getting pregnant and having multiple babies in your 40s. And the reason I titled this The Empowerment of Getting Pregnant, and we'll talk about it a little bit later on, but after having two babies, in my 40s, in the interim, I created a pregnancy after 40 community. We have over 7,000 members now, and it is so empowering to know what our bodies can do after 40, especially after hearing all the crazy statistics about being able to conceive after 40 and even having a healthy baby after 40. So, I created this community, which is composed and comprised of women from all over the United States as well as all over the world. There's several different countries represented in the group of women from all different socioeconomic groups, demographics, everything. And to me, that is one of the most empowering things is when women can get together and not have all the drama, but come together for one positive purpose, and that is to support and encourage one another on this pregnancy after 40 journey. In this presentation, I'll be talking about a couple things. I'm going to let you know a little bit about me, my story, the differences in my pregnancies from when I was 25 and my pregnancies in my 40s. And they were all different. One similarity, but basically they were all different. And then I'll give a couple of the tips that I actually give to members whenever they ask me, what is it that they think that they should be doing? And I have something that I call the three W's, and we'll talk about that as well. We are at a fertility expo, so there are plenty of experts that you'll be hearing from today. So mine is not medical, but it's definitely anecdotal and things that I've heard throughout the group and things that I've experienced as well. So a little bit about me is that I am an attorney. I'm also a speaker. I speak primarily to women who are over 40. Of course, I speak to women in reference to pregnancy after 40, and I also am an empowerment speaker to women over 40 who want to change their lives in career, in love, and relationships. But as far as pregnancy after 40, I've had three children. They are they were all naturally conceived. Again, I have an 18-year-old daughter, almost 19, who I had when I was 25. And then I have a 2-year-old who's almost three at this point, and I have a 14-month-old as well. So I had them at 41 and 43. So this is a picture of my family here. And I shouldn't say my family, my husband's not in this picture, but he definitely played a part into all this, right? so, so these are the three kids that I have now. My story basically, I had my first child, my daughter, when I was 25. I got pregnant at 24, had her when I was 25. I was a single parent basically from birth when I had her. And many of you may have had children in your 20s or previously, and maybe you were married and you've gotten divorced, you have a new partner, and now you're 40, close to 40 or over 40, and you're thinking about doing it again. Sometimes there's surprise pregnancies, and there's a huge gap in between the children. Like I have a 15-year gap between my daughter and my first son, but it's definitely possible. Um, so again, going back to that time period when I was 30, I got involved in a 10-year relationship, but I really did want to have more children. That feeling just never went away. But as a result of me being a single parent at 25, I refused to do it by myself because it is extremely hard. But I also, I just still had that desire to have more children. In that relationship, my partner, he already did have three children. They were actually really close to the same age as my daughter, so they kind of got along really well. But he had a vasectomy before we met. He was previously married and he thought three was good and he didn't want any more. Then he got divorced, and then he was kind of going back and forth as to whether or not he wanted to have more children or not. Ultimately, he decided no. I mean, it ended up being for the best because that relationship did not work out. It was kind of a toxic relationship. I tried to suppress the desire to have more children, but it was still kind of there. So, towards the end of my 30s, I did finally have a breakup of that long-term relationship. And I think, one of the things that led me to that point of breaking up finally was I was like, okay, I'm almost 40. I basically accepted the fact that I was not going to have any more children. I thought 40, I was just too old. I didn't hear a lot of women who were having babies or pregnancies in their 40s. And so I just kind of accepted that. And I thought, that was going to be it. Never imagined having children in my 40s. And I was at that point, I was okay with that. Then fast forward a little bit, I reconnected with my now husband when I was 40, and we started dating. We actually originally met in 2003. So I've known him for years, 13 years, kind of reconnected in between on and off of my other relationship when there were breakups, periods of breakups. But he was 46 at the time. He didn't have any children. And he stated that he did want children. I remember having a conversation with him saying, look, I'm 40, I'm getting older. I don't know if it's possible for me to even have children. So I was like, we can try or not, basically not prevent pregnancy. So again, I was skeptical because of my age. And I quite frankly, ladies, I thought that he probably was sterile because I didn't know very many men who were in their 40s, approaching 50, who didn't have children and did want children. If they didn't want to have children, that was one thing. But if they wanted to have children, they were that age. They probably already had them at that point, or they just couldn't have children. So I was thinking, well, I had a child when I was in my 20s, so I thought I was okay. Um, for the most part, I guess I was a little confident in that area, but also I was skeptical at the same time. So for about 6 months, we didn't use any protection. And then after the 6 months, I kind of started thinking, okay, well, maybe I really am barren. Maybe I really am old. And I can't conceive after 40. At 6 months in, there was a period that I had kind of what I describe as an emotional release from that previous relationship that I was speaking of earlier. I had not really processed that relationship out, and I really was kind of holding it together or holding it on the inside. A lot of times, we as women, we kind of keep on going about of our daily lives. And don't want to let things that are bothering us really bother us. But a lot of times we kind of take those things and we internalize them, which is what I had done. When I had ended the 10-year relationship, I didn't really process it as a loss. Didn't really cry or anything like that. And I just, like I said, I had an emotional release. And after that, I had the greatest sense of peace that I have ever experienced in my life at that point. So and once I let that go, and had that release, within the next month, I was pregnant. And then I had my daughter, I'm sorry, I had my son when I was 41. So just kind of letting go, not thinking that I was stressing or I was holding anything in, letting all that go actually allowed my body, in my opinion, to be able to conceive. And that's not something that a doctor can fix. That is something that you have to kind of deal with yourself if you're holding something like that around with you. So I found out I was pregnant. Super, super excited at first. And then I went onto the internet like many of us do. And I Googled myself into a hysteria. I looked up pregnancy after 40, being pregnant after 40, and I just totally was freaked out. Um, I saw all these daunting statistics of one, how hard it was to get pregnant after 40. And really, they start telling you this after the age of 35. But how hard it is to get pregnant after 40. And then if you do get pregnant, the chances of having a healthy baby are decreased. And so I was just like paranoid and afraid and just scared of being one, able to go to term, and then two, having a healthy baby. So I kind of went through that pregnancy and I was writing articles and kind of little blogs here and there about my experience, but I didn't post them anywhere because, again, I was terrified that maybe I was not going to have my son. And ultimately, I did. I had a healthy baby boy overall. I had a couple issues, which I'll talk about a little bit later on. Um, but he was healthy, and about a week after he was born, I had my son in one hand, in the other hand, I was nursing him, and I had my phone in the other hand. And I just started the Pregnancy After 40 private group on Facebook on my phone. And it just that's how things just kind of started. And that was in the summer of 2018. And it has grown tremendously since then. So the purpose of the group was to provide a safe place or an environment for women to come together to support and encourage one another who were on this pregnancy after 40 journey, because it can be lonely. You can, not have the support of your family or friends, and you may have friends who are almost having grandchildren at this age, but this is a place where all women are accepted in an age group and they're being supported. Um, so another part of my journey after I had my son and after I started the group, me and my husband wanted to have another baby. So by now I was 41 slash 42, almost 42, and thought, okay, well, it was kind of easy for me to have the first baby after I had that release. Hopefully it'd be easy this time. So we were kind of trying after I had my first son, not trying, but not trying to prevent it either. And didn't happen for about 8 months. So I thought, okay, well, let me get a little bit more serious because I know, again, as each year passes in your 40s, the chances of becoming pregnant decrease. So I ended up I downloaded the Ovia app. That's the fertility app that I use. I always kept track of my cycles, plugged those in, and to my surprise, a week later, after I'd done all this, the app advised me to take a pregnancy test, and I was like, "This app is got to be off." Like I literally just put in the numbers a few days ago, but that one I took the pregnancy test, and it was actually positive. Super super excited. Unfortunately, at around 8 weeks, I was 42 at this point. I did miscarry. Um, and I attributed it to a sickness or a virus that I had contracted from my son. He had a virus, and I read the virus that he had. If I hadn't had it when I was a child, then it was possible that I could miscarriage, and I believe that's what happened that time. So I went to my OB. My OB was basically stating, you still want to try again, wait one cycle, and then you can try again. So that's what we did. Got my fertility app again, the Ovia app. In the interim, I, started exercising more, trying to change my diet more, just trying to get healthier. Again, because we're getting older, and just want to optimize my chances of conceiving. And I expected it to take a few months again. After we waited one cycle, um, I got the fertile periods for the next month of when I would be at the optimal point of fertility for the month. And so we definitely capitalized on that period of time. And lo and behold, we actually got pregnant again that month. So that son was born February 2020. Gosh, a couple weeks before the country shut down with the pandemic. So we had him. Again, a couple issues with him, but I'll discuss it a little bit later. But after he was born, I decided to start the Pregnancy After 40 podcast because there were so many stories of women having babies. Because by that point we had a couple thousand members in the group, and I just saw so many things and learned so much from these women. There's so many different issues that women can have, and so many stories and so many experiences. I just wanted to provide a platform to share all of those stories. I'm just one person. I have my perspective, but there's so many other things that women go through that I didn't personally experience. So, in addition to the amazing guests that we have, and they're all the guests, most of the guests are members of the Pregnancy After 40 private group. But we've also had a good number of experts on, fertility experts. We've had doctors, we have doulas, we have midwives, um, childbirth educators, different types of fertility experts, prenatal yoga therapists, and chiropractors. So definitely check that out. Again, in addition to the member stories, we have the expert guests as well. So, differences between my pregnancies and my 20s versus my 40s. When I was 25, like most of us, you're pretty much physically fit. You're at optimal health for the most part. We've not been exposed to a lot of the environmental factors in the world. So, at 25, from a physical standpoint, I pretty much had a perfect pregnancy. I think I had one ultrasound when I was when I first conceived, when I found out I was pregnant, and I think they had one like around the 20-week period as well. So 2 ultrasounds, and that was it, and everything was good. I didn't have any morning sickness. I didn't have any other pregnancy related issues. I went full term, probably, maybe a week or so after my due date. I went into labor. Naturally, I was home probably about 11 o'clock at night. I had a midwife at that point. The practice I was going to, they had midwives, so I did use a midwife for her. My mindset being that I will go through labor as long as I can without medication. But if I couldn't, then I was open to using an epidural, anything that would ease the pain. It was a natural labor and delivery. It was not by choice at the end of the day. It was a little unbearable at the end. And I really wanted medication, but for some reason that day, there were women coming into the hospital who were more dilated than me. And I could never get a room in order to get the epidurals. I ended up delivering my daughter naturally. Everything went well. There was some minor tearing. Um, and the midwife basically stitched me up after that, but nothing major. It was pretty boring pregnancy overall. Now versus my pregnancy in my 40s. So with my first son, and with all my pregnancies, I didn't really have any morning sickness. So that was great and amazing. Um, but I was referred to a maternal fetal medicine specialist. And that's if you have either one pre-existing conditions or anything that may complicate your pregnancy. And at least where I am, and it's in definitely other states and places in the country, if you are considered advanced maternal age, which we are at 40. So I was immediately referred to a maternal fetal medicine specialist. Some people have different opinions about that. I think for me, I thought it was great because I was being monitored and there were more ultrasounds and they were able to keep track of my son and make sure everything was okay. Immediately, I was advised to take a baby aspirin daily because of my age. I never had any high blood pressure issues, but the reasoning is to reduce the chances of preeclampsia. And so I did do that, that pregnancy. Um, but with the having the maternal fetal medicine specialist and more ultrasounds, they were able to see that my son had IUGR, which was or is considered is called intrauterine growth restriction. And that's when the baby is measuring small. So there's two types. The one that I had, they were saying that it looked like in his brain that he was conserving energy, and his stomach was growing smaller, or it was measuring smaller. I'm sorry, and that they really need to keep a look out on him and make sure I was eating, getting all the nutrients that I needed. And I tried everything, and he just remained small, which they say is not unusual when you're having a baby a little bit older. But he was fine. I mean, he was other than measuring small. Everything else seemed healthy after I kind of started eating a little bit more. Um, my due date was actually the 4th of July, and I went in, I guess the day before, just for a regular stress test to see if everything's okay. And they, were doing an ultrasound at my regular OB. The OB was saying, "Hey, the baby still is still measuring small, and we definitely suggest doing an induction because as you get older, your placenta starts to deteriorate, and the baby doesn't get the nutrients that he or she needs. And so they think that inducing is the best solution." So we decided to go ahead and do the induction. It was a day early from his due date, so I was pretty okay with that. He ultimately was born on his due date anyway. I went into the hospital, took Cytotec, which is to kind of get labor going and to soften your cervix. About 30 minutes after that, my water broke. My contractions started 30 minutes later. I received an epidural probably like 5 hours later after screaming and begging. But again, at the end of the day, when he was born, he was fine. He was healthy. He was 6 pounds. Um, 6 pounds and 12 ounces. So he was a nice sized baby. He wasn't small at all. So he was perfect. 43 years old. Again, no morning sickness. Again, I was advised to or referred over to the maternal fetal medicine specialist. Again, I was advised to take the baby aspirin daily. To be honest with you, I didn't take it as much that time around because with my son, my previous son, when I had at 41, um, after delivering him, I was bleeding a lot. And as we know, the baby aspirin is a blood thinner, and they actually had to give me something to stop my bleeding. So I didn't take it as much in my second pregnancy in my 40s. And again, I never had the blood pressure issues. It wasn't high. If my blood pressure was high, I would have been more inclined to take it. So I probably took it like a couple times a week as opposed to every day. Um, Difference in that one, my pregnancy at 43, there was a lot of anxiety. And that is very, very common for women once they turn 40, or again, they're considered older, because you hear of all the bad things that can happen and the chances of miscarriage go up. Mine was mainly due to my previous miscarriage. And so I, was just on high paranoia. I also had a subchorionic hemorrhage, which came about a couple months into the pregnancy. I just started bleeding and I thought, I was miscarrying again. I didn't have the cramping necessarily. So I went to the OB and they, did the ultrasound. They said everything looks okay, but you do have a subchorionic hemorrhage, and pretty much put me on um, kind of light rest, a cervical rest, should I say, and not to do too much and abstain from sex. So and it kind of resolved itself, and the bleeding stopped, and so that part was okay, but just still kind of remain anxious. I was also diagnosed with gestational diabetes this time. So as opposed to my son that I had at 41, he was always measuring small. This pregnancy, the baby was always measuring big. So because he was growing, he was scheduled to be induced at 39 weeks because he was bigger. Kind of the same process. Cytotec. This time I actually took Pitocin. This was the best labor and delivery because I made it very, very clear what I wanted my birth plan to be. And that was to feel as little pain as possible. And that was the case with this pregnancy. So happy about that. So you definitely have a say in your birth plan, how you want to do things, whether you want to do it naturally or you don't want to feel anything, and they can definitely make those things happen for you. So, common occurrences for women who are getting pregnant after 40. And so, hopefully, if you are trying at 40 or older, you get pregnant. One of the things that's very, very common is a doctor will prescribe baby aspirin for you. And again, that is for preeclampsia purposes. For me, again, where I am, they refer you to a maternal fetal medicine specialist. And again, I think it's wonderful that you have it because you just get that extra care. Genetic testing is big, and they usually do it pretty early. They screen you pretty early within the first trimester. If they don't get you in the first trimester, it'd be the beginning of the second trimester. They'll do that genetic testing. I've interviewed women who have opted to do the genetic testing, and some of them decide not to. Sometimes there are false positives, which makes the pregnancy very, very stressful. So some women don't even opt to do it. They're just like, this is my baby, and I'm going to have him or her. I'm going to do all that I can, and it doesn't matter anyway. So, but that is something that they do offer, and you definitely have the choice to decline or go forward with it. Progesterone, that is something that's very, very popular that I didn't really know about in the group before I started it, but many women are take progesterone either on their own. You can buy it over the counter or Amazon. You can take it either orally or vaginally. We do have um, one of our experts, a fertility doctor, on the podcast who talks about it as well, when to do it and how much to take. But it's definitely something that we suggest. Members have suggested that that's the reason that they were able to maintain a pregnancy or even get pregnant with progesterone. As we get older, that hormone naturally decreases. And so sometimes, and that's what you need in order to sustain a pregnancy. So that's something you definitely want to talk about with your provider if you are thinking about getting pregnant over 40. Scheduled inductions is huge, huge in the group. A common question all the time. It seems overall, a lot of doctors are talking about 39 weeks is a safe time in order to induce. It's not too early, it's not too late. And again, there is a concern that the placenta will deteriorate. So they do schedule a lot of inductions. Um, and restrictions on home births. Sometimes because of our ages, home birthing centers will not take women who are over 40, it's definitely going to be something that you will look into depending on where you are. Some women may have them, some places don't. So that's something just to kind of be aware of as well. So again, I was saying earlier, there's a few tips that I suggest when people ask me, oh, what can I do to conceive, help conceive? Again, I'm not a doctor, but these are the three things that are just so important and so easy to do. And they don't cost any money. And I refer to these as the three W's, easy to remember. And it's what I attribute to my natural conceptions. And the first one is drinking water. One of the polls that stays up in our group is how much water do you take? And most women, the majority of women do not drink enough water, and they admit it, but it's so important to conceiving, and whatever you decide to do, whether it's 64 ounces, whether it's half your weight in ounces, whether it's a gallon of water, just make sure you get adequate amount of water. It increases the cervical mucus, so which allows the sperm to travel and assist in conceiving. So definitely get your water in. Walking. Walking is important. Just you want to do some kind of moderate exercise. And if you haven't been exercising, whether you're trying to conceive naturally or you're thinking about other reproductive options, you want to maximize your body in the healthy state that it's going to be in order to conceive. So you want to make sure you're doing some sort of moderate exercise. Nothing else, do some walking. There have been studies that show that women who are overweight, they have improved fertility if they start walking. Mentally just helps you just getting out, reducing stress and anxiety that comes along with trying to conceive. So just, give yourself time to do that every day. And it improves us physically, improves circulation overall. And the next one is your weight. Wanting to maintain or work towards a healthy weight. Being healthy is the key to conceiving, especially if you're struggling in conceiving. So, being both underweight and overweight can affect your menstrual cycle and your ovulation. So again, you just want to maintain a healthy weight. It's something that if you are going out and reaching out to reproductive specialists, they'll tell you, basically to exercise and lose some weight if you are overweight and to gain some weight if you're underweight. So weight is definitely important. We have 50 fertility tips on our website that women can also get and have access to. There definitely are lifestyle changes. The benefits, it just prepares your body to try to conceive. It helps you maintain your pregnancy and also adds longevity in your life. So you can be there for your baby. So it's definitely a lifestyle change. We give weekly fertility tips, about 2 to 4 tips a week. So you're not overwhelmed. Instead of just getting a list and not knowing what to do, we write several paragraphs about, what the tip is and what you can do and examples of a diet and all of that. They just, usually tell us just be healthy. Sometimes we don't know exactly what that means. So we kind of describe those in there in those weekly fertility tips. So free resources that we have. And definitely, I would suggest if you're trying to conceive and you're over 40 is join the Pregnancy After 40 private group on Facebook, an amazing group of women. We also have our website, which is pregnancyafter40.com. And then the podcast, again, we have those guests, those amazing guests of women who share their stories or over 40 stories and experts who chime in as well. It gives you different information about things you may have never even thought about while you were trying to conceive or pregnant over 40. So that is about it. Thank you for joining. I know this is the first presentation of the day, one of the first ones. So I hope you enjoyed it and hope you have an amazing day and enjoy the rest of the expo.